EA non-stop microtransaction #1 and player dissatisfaction. DLC early access distress. Capcom with another unoptimized mess. DEI design retardation. Jedi Survivor bug infestation. Andromeda Veilguard incompetent. You will pay for pride and accomplishment. Pokemon Go swallowed whole Bosco Elite. DEI compromised them totally. Warner Bros doubling down on inclusion. Blizzard now seeking a Korean infusion. Plunging Faith Leap Ubisoft Daddy exquisite form fatty boomba lati. Sims creators love EA AI but hate inZoi. I wonder why. Shills will still give balls a good slurp but cannot escape smoke detector chirp. Copyright strike opinions too moist and hope that this facial quenches your thirst. Hello, beta testers. Like, comment, subscribe, and join if you appreciate these videos, but especially if you like showing that it's not only sore losers resorting to telling lies and cheating to get their way. Spend an hour looking through dashcam footage and you'll see just how fast some people snap into victim mode to cover their ass. And were I to tell you that after hitting a girl in the head during this race that this athlete would jump into an interview to cry while a smoke detector beeped in the background to indicate the batteries needed changing, you'd tell me that I'm just making that up, you know, that it's insane. But unfortunately, the truth is now what normies have caught up to, and the description is hate philosophy that posers peddle, may be a little bit harder to force. Following Dragon Age's failure, FIFA rebranding, and Sims 1 and 2 re-release that was on par with the embarrassing disaster of a GTA Definitive Edition from Rockstar, EA suffered their worst year since 1999. That's 25 years. Older than some of the people dodging the dozens of restrictions placed on my videos to keep them hidden from you. Discord link in the description if you want better notifications, by the way. I hope the Immortals of Avium, Jedi Survivor PC, and Dragon's Dogma 2 PC performance reminders illustrate a pattern, because this video spotlights The Sims 4, which released missing so many features its predecessors had that were it to list them, it would seem insane that people are defending, but they do defend, for one of three reasons. One, the sense of their lonely ass finally belonging to some schlong smoking club. Two, they're genuinely so young that they don't know better, have no experience, and, you know, got plenty of time. Number three, they're circle jerkers, paid shills, edgelords, people genuinely seeking chaos, and undercover devs swaying the narrative as best they can by manipulating the audience. The Sims 4 has over 90 DLCs to nickel and dime the players so that they buy the missing features piece by piece. I don't say this with any holier-than-thou air. Understand, I embrace a J.G. Wentworth philosophy when it comes to your money and feel you should use it when you need it. But as much as I can appreciate whatever entertainment value there must be in Destiny or Overwatch or The Sims, I don't demand that people recognize they have a problem or factor in their sunk cost, kind of forcing them back into this fun-free experience. I want to posit that maybe things could be much better, and that the publisher and lack of time or funding is rarely entirely to blame. Flowtopia is coming, and along with an unannounced Hoyoverse product, it could compete with Stardew Valley and Animal Crossing, in the same way that Palworld competes with Pokemon, in the same way that Marvel Rivals decimates the greedy and pathetic Overwatch 2. Maybe you've seen the trailers for Ananta, previously Project Mugen, that confidently boasts a car-driving, spider-swinging, and flashy combat with jiggle physics kind of aesthetic, giving you what you're looking for if you're a waifu or husbando type of loser like me. It would be naive of us to expect GTA quality out of anything, but GTA's existence never stopped Saints Row from establishing a place back when it gave gamers what they actually wanted. I'm playing Nikke Goddess of Victory now because Shift Up, who made Stellar Blade, is making Project Witches. I'm in Black Desert because they're crafting Crimson Desert. I clock Azure Lane's devs going all out on the upcoming Azure Promelia, another monster collecting game with farming, flashy combat, jiggle physics, and whether you Genshin or not, you must acknowledge the appeal. This catering to players is the night and day contrast to devs genuinely wishing harm on people for merely disagreeing with their political beliefs, throwing their entire studios under the bus by crippling sales of often pre-launch titles so woke and glued to poisonous sanitization specialists that it's destined to be forgotten, too bland to even be remembered as an example on how bad things got. Do you feel catered to? Or is your inclination to convince people that it's not as bad as they're making it seem, when they regard the bare minimum as something that's not being met? Overwatch players observe an objective win, as Blizzard is forced to offer incentive to not only get people in, but to retain them. And the competition from Marvel rivals is what brings that. I pray the women enabling EA through The Sims understand one thing. The better inZoi does, the better The Sims will be forced to be. When I initially spoke on video games, I was instantly labeled a hater by groups of entities terminally online enough to devote their existence to testicle tonguing, whether Marvel's Avengers by the triggered developers choking on identity at Crystal Dynamics, a sanitized, sensitive Saints Row reboot by out-of-touch nitwits eager to combat fans, only to see their studio shut down at the studio formerly known as Volition, Sushi Squad by dyed-hair activists eager to flex creative bankruptcy at the husk of a studio known as Rocksteady, Dragon Age, Concord, Dustborn, Avowed. I'm not the guy to involve in a conversation that some slack-jawed, out-of-touch dimwit desperately trying to diminish the ugly woke infestation in my gaming space that I've inhabited longer than all of these activist psychopaths have spent in their new identities. The inclusion shield these entities use while paradoxically excluding and granting less for what you're paying for is not only ineffective, but is now an approved government-funded detriment that, for all its progressive intent, regresses, undoing the work, and the kindest thing I typically refrain from doing is including others, but for once, hear it from someone else's mouth.
Now, I will be honest, I hate every single hairstyle in this pack. Every single one is a butch lesbian haircut. Having one or two butch lesbian haircuts in a pack is fine, but I don't want every single one of them to look like a butch lesbian star, and I don't think that's unreasonable to say. As an LGTV myself, I think diversity and inclusivity is great, but I think they could have included more variety in terms of the hairstyles, especially as well because they made them all unisex between male and female Sims, so I think maybe they tried to make it androgynous or something, but it's just not working.
What I've so colorfully referred to as transdrogyny is the biggest red flag signaling woke in any product to the layman, the normie, the average doesn't engage with online discourse schmuck. They can see this at a glance. The safe, anti-feminine, and anti-beauty designs appear at a glance as though the concept artist was flanked by screaming feminists, and in the gaming space, they literally do just that when they're not suggesting you might be kidnapped or held in America. It's like a lawsuit levying lolcow sex worker of an activist so desperate for the cum shot of attention they'll assume any form to articulate the veiny shaft in their direction, if only for a moment. Offended queers, performative activists, useful idiots, shills with hands up their ass, argue, chastise, defend, and dismiss constrictive criticism, constrictive indeed, constructive criticism, as harmful, as harassment, as evil, because their livelihoods are wrapped up in smiling and telling lies for product, and they inspire volunteers to do the same, attributing civil discussion to hate, threats. In fact, I remember fondly Redfall's absolutely unfinished state and crippling bugs being swept by industry shills like Lawrence Sontag and Bruce Green, formerly of Funhouse, formerly of G4 and Inside Game, who they instantly use death threats. It's such a go-to, framing gamers as evil incels who are jumping on the bandwagon and need to touch grass, if you say so, shills. I bring this up because the exact same thing is happening in the Sims community. The community of girls, wannabe girls, and gays that call The Sims their own define what the polite side of the gaming space would refer to as toxic positivity, when it's just criticism. I'm a gamer from Sega Genesis days. Toxic isn't a word that we'd even apply in a modern warfare lobby because we're all consenting adults and we want to be here. Some of the people we talk the biggest shit to would become the biggest friends. We are testing how much gets up people's ass. It's important to have a thick skin. Not everybody works like you, and not everything is harmful because you are harmed by it. And if I'm being honest, the gnarliest shit that I ever heard online were in like SOCOM lobbies back when the PS2 needed the network adapter. If we men are dogs, the girls tolerating less than they deserve are bitches, and we want you to stand up for yourself the way that I have to force some people to stand up for themselves. It's exactly how we categorize some of the soy-soaked Concord apologists desperate to defend universally despised DEI designs and pronoun-centric marketing that intended to waste years of time spent by developers who unwittingly did their work dutifully, kept a fucking head down, and, well, They have some gendermancer queer entity kneecap the product before the race can begin. Or maybe they're grabbing batons to strike people in the back of the head so that they can get on camera and cry and say how it was actually the gamer's fault. It's the incels. You know what I mean? In terms you girls can understand, the souffle has deflated before it left the oven. I'm kidding. In terms gamer girls can understand, ugly characters. You know what I mean? We know that it bothers you too, because it's by triggered ugly developers self-inserting their ugly, and when everybody hates it, they take it as a personal attack. Fucked up, right? Good for them. But why must you pay for their nonsense? Forgive me for saying Rob Lowe instead of George Lowe last video. Not cool, but you'd think my brain has only a certain amount of space for celebrity names. To touch on Monster Hunter Wilds, this record-breaking release defies the divisive content that's been coming out as of late. A very meaty and fun experience in my opinion when it works, but a product that launched on PC with such poor optimization that for many it was unplayable, not borderline. Instantly mixed reviews. The reception on Steam by a good portion Chinese audience now was something suddenly tricky for me to even want to talk about, because I'm pro-consumer and the passion in me factors this in, as well as factoring in fans being catered to. Put plainly, Monster Hunter Wilds is not a golf club to the series, if you catch my meaning. It's not a bullet in the back of the head on the park bench like Sushi Squad. It's not forcing ugly transandrogynous designs like Pokemon Go before they were acquired by these new jerks. It's not endlessly lecturing in the middle of what's supposed to be escape entertainment. The game is there. As much as I hate the being forced to kind of walk for certain portions without being able to kind of just do my own thing, and as unfortunately safe horny as it still remains, even with the jiggle physics, this is a game that Monster Hunter fans will appreciate when it works. I haven't played a Monster Hunter since World, and it would appear as though they were rushing to beat the quarter to maybe fluff up these numbers. Even with the sensitivity consultation and whack practices by Capcom aside, I'd be honest in whether or not MHW was a fun game, and if it launched in a good state, I might even recommend it, but it didn't. And this sloppy practice has become the norm, with a lot of Western pundits and the toxic positivity having them be apologists that are running damage control and it's not this person's fault. And thankfully, the East is a lot more united in their justified frustration, and this ritual, this habit of lowering the bar for Capcom may be earning them a loss in the way of customers that will even give their product a try in the future. People paid for something that didn't function, and in my opinion, Capcom has not made enough of an effort in the direction of remedying that. The scathing and justified Chinese reviews didn't just kick Capcom for poor performance, but for game-breaking bugs, textures refusing to load, NPCs not appearing no matter how many times they reset, abysmal frame rate in a literal boss fight game. Like Day 1 DLC characters you cannot edit without paying, when the one thing some people might have paid for in the way of muscly or curvier body types, you know, the top downloaded mods for your game almost immediately, are mysteriously unavailable. Talk about inclusion. That's okay though. The PC had me and the stream helped me suss out all of the settings I needed to disable and switch to this to hopefully get this thing to just run smoothly. I feel like I spent as much time fighting bosses in Monster Hunter Wilds as I did slowly glued in these NPC conversations that were unskippable while I'm walking slowly through a biome on a freaking mount. And Sushi Squad, a Sweet Baby Ink joint, did the same thing, gluing you to rooftops in Sushi Squad while somebody talks just so they can pad out the runtime of the game. Capcom may really have screwed up with this one, and to put it in terms you might be able to understand, there was a time when you were willing to try Halo Infinite, and then you played it, and there's a strong likelihood you don't see yourself going back to that. That may be where Capcom is right now, and in my opinion, if they're not careful, they will stray clear on into EA territory, which puts them on the path to Ubisoft with this hypersensitivity and censorship that everybody can't stand and will simply go to something else when that quality meets their criteria. Gaming, specifically in the West, is being strangled by weaponized DEI that has allowed the filtering of talent, love, and passion clean out of these artistic fields that needed them. It creates unnecessary obstacles. And that's the only thing that these entities will be creating, because they only know how to destroy, distort, repurpose. How bad a shape do you think Monolith, the closed studio behind the now cancelled Wonder Woman game, was in for them to shut them down? And for us to understand that they're just doubling down on the inclusion, nonsense right here, Warner decided to close and cancel that game, another Batgirl. But yes, beta tester, my interest is now on the Sims community, half of which are shills desperate to shoot down this game for doing exactly what EA does, and they don't have a problem with that because they sucking them from behind, when you'd be a fool not to assume AI isn't being used to replace more than they're telling you, and they've told you plenty about whom AI is replacing. I said years ago that you don't think every woke studio just has the ability to upload Deborah Wilson into their games without her needing to come in or say anything, but y'all not ready for that conversation still. It's never been more Gover than it is now. It's Gover 9000. Pokemon Go bought by Scopely. Yes, right. You can tell you about that DEI. To conclude the video, all I need to do is remind people that Ubisoft seeks for you to be comfortable not owning the games that you buy, and some of us campaigning for single-player and offline experiences have seen this service writing on the wall for years. The desire to force you to subscribe and pay regularly lest you lose access, make it easy to police you too. You wouldn't want to lose all your items you bought into. Your future sees you paying for something that right now you get for free. Maybe you'll be paying to put it back to normal because they'll make the normal experience clunky, slow, full of ads, bug-ridden. To many of the grifters who have jumped on the multiple boats to steer them into icebergs, none of them will care about what comes next. But I think if you care, then you should just slide it out of your butt just long enough to see what this inZoi thing is doing. It's already got such an uphill battle with that performance, but I'll be the one to test it out and let everybody know what's going on. I love you, patron sponsors and big titty beta testers. Dia thanks and sends love for the birthday wishes. And to get better notified about videos and streams, the Discord link is in the description. I'll talk to you soon. Stay out of trouble. Can you imagine me waiting this long on Azure Promelia and Crimson Desert? No!